and the incumbent mechanism, set of tools available to us, is failing us. And it's failing us largely because it requires a God's eye view of system. So, in broad strokes, what I'm trying to say is that for the physical sciences, there's basically been one toolkit for modeling dynamics of physical systems. And that is essentially the framework laid out by the Newtonian interpretation of dynamics. So Newton sets out a mathematical framework and then gives a physical interpretation of that mathematical framework. And sort of the mathematical language and its physical interpretation have set the tone. They've created a container, a mental framework in which people involved in the physical sciences have, for the last several hundred years, been thinking. So even when they've really had to stretch the mathematics considerably, they're only stretching in certain dimensions. But the notion of dynamics itself, continues to be captured in terms of a notion of derivative. Even when we get out to general covariance and Lie derivatives, we're always talking about a notion of derivative. And in the Newtonian framework, really what's going on is a wall clock perspective of change with respect to some overarching wall clock, and that sort of the requirement of a God's eye view for the modeling of physical dynamics is not going to serve us well when we come to issues of scale, when we come to issues of expressing or reasoning about dynamics across scale. And so one of the very, very practical reasons for beginning to look at computation and what it says about dynamics and what it says about dynamics and the physical world is because it provides a new set of tools for modeling dynamics and modeling physical situations, especially when we recognize that what is essential about those physical systems is a kind of information processing strategy. So what I want to do is to approach some more recent models of computation that are thinking about computation as a kind of interaction, and then talk about extensions of those in terms of what I would call reflection or introspection. So these are computational models in which, the model itself is available to the model. So you have this little self loop, this internalization. The picture we often have, kind of the folklore picture of the human mind. We stumble upon this as children. Is there's a little guy sitting inside your head, kind of controlling the strings. But that's an interesting sort of recursive picture, because if there's a little guy sitting in your head, then who's sitting in the little guy's head in your head? And off you go. But the question is whether or not one can make sense of a picture like that, where you do have this little self-loop. So you have a model of the larger system inside the model of the system. So that's kind of an intuitive account of the notion of introspection. And so those two things actually fit together. And when you fit those two conceptual toolkits together, the possibility of modeling physical systems explodes. And